Just what are the top 10 challenges for defense contractors today? The Department of Defense depends on the defense industrial base to deliver on the competitiveness, security, and innovation challenges facing the nation. Always difficult, the situation is now dire as these challenges loom insurmountable due to austerity and the threats and effects of sequestration. Each of these challenges is highlighted in this YouTube presentation. Additional YouTube presentations are noted for each challenge discussed. Foremost, the bargain between industry and government must be reset to a new baseline, disciplined by the steps of global software competitiveness, spanning suppliers, customers, competitors, and event threats, and a willingness to accept fixed-price contracting for software with its risks and incentives. Accordingly, there must be a zero tolerance for accepting technical debt along with the demonstrated ability to manage it. Acquisition, management, and technical approaches must be organized around next-generation software engineering with its immediate goal to drive systems and software engineering to do more with less fast. Innovation must be accompanied by incentives for adopting team innovation management to systematically harvest ideas, pinpoint the most promising, and select the critical few that will transform and sustain enterprise product and service offerings. Supply chain management, including selective and disciplined offshore outsourcing, must be explored and exploited with the expectation for low-cost, predictable outcomes. Trustworthy software engineering must become commonplace as the means to build security in combating cybersecurity challenges. On top of all this, resilience under stress must be assured through technical means as well as public policy for the systems of systems that compose the critical infrastructure and the defense industrial base. With austerity and sequestration setting the tone and contemporary challenges unmet, the top 10 focus areas need to be squarely on these challenges. Recognize that competitiveness is like floodwater finding or creating its own path. Competitiveness impacts both software and security as it favors offshore outsourcing and further impacts security as innovation drives towards mobile and bring your own device. Recognize also that software and security are connected at the hip through the elusive attribute of trustworthiness, and together impact competitiveness in a not-so-virtuous cycle of interactions. We need only to look at the indiscriminate use of the internet for information an enterprise cannot afford to lose and cannot protect. The Software 2015 report observed that software is the critical infrastructure within the critical infrastructure. This was the theme of the second National Software Summit. The 2015 software vision was then stated as achieving the ability to routinely develop trustworthy software products and systems while ensuring the continued competitiveness of the U.S. software industry. As we approach 2015, the question today is, where do we stand with respect to the National Software Strategy and its programs? The answer: the situation is dire. Global software competitiveness is a critical ingredient to the nation's prosperity, centered around controlling scarce personnel resources, valued customers, ruthless competitors, and chaotic event threats. The Global Software Competitiveness presentation provides a collection of fundamental observations on the stage we play on and the route to global software competitiveness. Today, there are challenges that threaten the sustainability of the defense software industry. When it comes to large-scale software-intensive programs, it is time to move from aspirational slogans to a disruptive game changer to bring the defense industry into line with the austerity needs of the Department of Defense. It is time to alter this dynamic by addressing the challenges of competition, innovation, and fixed-price contracting and shifting from an expectation of compliance to one of leadership and innovation. This presentation outlines an experience-based software doctrine for large-scale software-intensive systems development on fixed-price contracts, and the toolkit to change the game. Technical debt is the organizational, project, or engineering neglect of known good practice that can result in persistent public, user, customer, staff, reputation, or financial cost. The current scope of technical debt as a metaphor for the consequences of neglect in software engineering and management is somewhat old style and certainly programmer-centric. Introduced by Ward Cunningham in 1992, the current definition of technical debt needs to be brought up to date. The early, archaic, and somewhat awkward definition is not quite right code, which we postpone making it right. This scope of technical debt from the viewpoint of the programmer is one of software components, code and test activities, and static analysis. However, the neglect for which the project and enterprise will pay in terms of interest on the debt includes systems and software engineering and management, systems and systems of systems, iterative lifecycle model dynamics and dynamic analysis, and finite word effects. So clearly, the scope of technical debt must be elevated. There remain unclaimed benefits and unmet needs stemming from earlier neglect. The immediate goal of practical next-generation software engineering is to drive systems and software engineering to do more with less fast. To find the jumping-off point in preparing for next-generation software engineering, we need only to look at the unclaimed benefits and unmet needs stemming from earlier neglect in management, engineering, and process. Driving a user domain awareness towards more harmonious cooperation among people and machines in systems acquisition is an imperative. Without this awareness throughout the life cycle and across the functional domains of acquisition management, program management, systems engineering, and software engineering, the gap between user expectation and user satisfaction will continue to grow, and mission execution will suffer. Innovation enables an enterprise to elevate its offerings in the software stack. Team Innovation Management is organized to encourage innovation within the U.S. software industry and to advance the competitive development of the enterprise by renovating functional tasks and activities and accelerating the innovation management capability and capacity needed to substantially increase innovation in both the production and use of systems and software. It is specifically focused on the systems engineering and software engineering roles and capabilities needed to systematically collaborate in the cross-discipline intersection between producer and consumer. The Team Innovation Management Lab results focus on how innovative ideas are sparked using Team Innovation Management, how the Team Innovation Management Lab is planned, conducted, and reported out, how enterprise innovation is managed through operational analysis of Team Innovation Management Lab results. SmartPipe is registered with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office by Don O'Neill. As global enterprises increasingly seek to achieve competitiveness on the cheap, global outsourcing is becoming more widespread. But due diligence is needed if success is to be delivered. It is especially necessary to exercise due diligence in anticipating and avoiding the risks and threats that could occur through the use of the global supply chain. Offshore outsourcing is an asymmetric tactic that delivers a competitive advantage by leveraging low wages and high skills. Managing a supply chain arrangement of global participants and functional tasks into an innovation-driven value hierarchy is a maximum-minimum problem of pushing the highest skill work to the lowest cost of performance. Trusted Pipe is registered with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office by Don O'Neill. While the traditional treatment of value of the CMMI, the Capability Maturity Model integration, in terms of cost, schedule, and productivity, quality, customer satisfaction, and return on investment, is sufficient to promote adoption of the CMMI and even to sustain a process improvement initiative through the early maturity levels, the value of the CMMI, determined in this way, is likely to be underestimated as the organization approaches higher maturity levels. The CMMI possesses unclaimed benefits available to those skilled enough to unlock them. Security is defined as the condition of being protected against danger or loss. Software assurance is the level of confidence that software is free from vulnerabilities. It involves trustworthiness and no exploitable vulnerability, justifiable confidence in predictable execution, and conformance through planned and systematic multidisciplinary activities. Simply put, the goal of cybersecurity is to assure the trustworthiness, security, and resiliency of software components, systems, and systems of all kinds, including those used in national defense and the nation's critical infrastructure. The strategy room seeks to establish a new normal for cybersecurity performance improvement and analysis expectations based on cybersecurity strategy, analytics, trade-offs, and tactics, and a calculated joint awareness of oneself and one's adversary. The attack outcomes being experienced, the bad actors being encountered, the consequences that attack outcomes and bad actors impose, and how to anticipate, avoid, withstand, mitigate, and recover from them. The operations effectiveness analysis of cybersecurity performance. If we intend to elevate the protection of the critical infrastructure to an issue of national security and competitiveness, more than public-private partnerships are needed. Rather than simply focusing on protection and assurance measures as a response to known vulnerabilities and threats, it is necessary to elevate the focus to resiliency. Achieving maturity in the assurance of resiliency throughout the critical infrastructure will help safeguard the nation's critical infrastructure and advance its global competitiveness. An emerging issue, especially critical to the Department of Defense and Department of Homeland Security, is that of managing network security, ensuring the continuity of operations for critical defense missions, and assuring the resiliency of the private sector's critical infrastructure. Assuring the resiliency of systems revolves around accountability and transparency. The challenge associated with assuring the resiliency of systems is based on a definition of resiliency by providing a framework for assuring resiliency under stress, expressed in terms of the management, process, and engineering indicators useful in asserting resiliency assurance claims, validating assurance arguments, and verifying assurance evidence. Inattention or failure to deal with these focus areas will yield consequences that will continue to play out over time. Navigating these focus areas is the precondition for coping with the realities of the 21st century. The successful prime contractors within the defense industrial base will anticipate what lies ahead and seek to avoid, withstand, and mitigate the consequences and adverse effects of austerity and sequestration. The top 10 focus areas are intended to serve as a vaccine to produce immunity against these consequences for those who accept the medicine. Those who neglect these precautions, letting past mistakes limit future possibilities, will be left to react and recover from the adverse effects of austerity and sequestration. For them, the situation will remain dire with adverse consequences in competitiveness, security, and innovation. Here is my contact information. I would be happy to receive questions and have discussions with people on this important subject.